Peace, family. This is your brother, Agent 2020, and this is another episode of Clear Vision with 2020. Now, this conversation today, this is what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, this is what's called the 10 basic stops. Okay, the 10 basic stops that victims of racism should practice in speech and or action. This list of stops was compiled by Neely Fuller Jr. Okay, we're going to talk about each of these in detail, as much detail as possible, and we're going to have the most constructive conversation concerning these 10 stops and the reason why they need to be done and the importance behind these 10 stops. So, like I always say, whatever you got to go get, go ahead on and grab that. If you ain't already got it, get yourself comfortable because it's time for us to start really talking about this. If we want to do something about this system that we in, that we talk about so much, it's time for us to know what it is, how it works, and then we got to come up with a counter to the system and keep countering that until the system destroys itself or until the system is destroyed. Okay? So, our conversation is going to be the 10 basic stops that victims of racism should practice in speech and or action. Stay tuned. Clear Vision with 2020.
In this current climate, day and time, information needs to be given clearly. In this case, Clear Vision with 2020 is a podcast for the people, by the people, that does exactly that. Your host keeps an open eye and mind when dealing with any issue at hand. We empower our audience with knowledge. You matter, and here, I use my voice to support and represent the people. The people are the human family who loves truth. Logical thinking and conversation skills are required for communication. News, culture, music, and entertainment with a clear look from a different perspective. Clear Vision with 2020.
Peace, family. Peace, family. This is your brother 2020, and this is Clear Vision with 2020. Now, this conversation today, I like to call these conversations as well as podcasts. You know, the podcast is just the general title for the show. Uh, but this is a conversation. And today's conversation is about Neely Fuller Jr.'s book, The United Independent Compensatory Code, System and Concept, a textbook, workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, white supremacy. That's the entire title. Okay. So what we're going to be talking about today is Neely Fuller Jr.'s 10 stops. Okay. The 10 basic stops that victims of racism should practice in speech and or action. Okay. So, number one, this one, we've been saying this for a long time, but the way we've been saying it hasn't been in the proper context. Okay. And to all of you, you know what I'm saying, what I like to call supporters of white supremacy doing the things that y'all doing, if it's demeaning, hindering, or hurting non-white people, then you are participating in white supremacy, racism, white supremacy. So, stop number one, stop snitching. Yeah, I said it, stop snitching. But see, we ain't talking about the type of snitching that y'all talking about. We're not talking about the type of snitching that y'all are speaking about. This is what it is. To snitch is to willfully and deliberately volunteer information about a person or persons in the specific intention of gaining direct or indirect personal favors and or praise from racists. When victims of racism, non-white people carry messages about and or witness against any person or persons in a manner that gives aid and comfort to racists, such action only helps to promote injustice. It is just incorrect for all persons to the best of their will and ability to avoid situations wherein they believe they may be tempted to and or expected to snitch. Snitching does not mean speaking to protect yourself from false accusations or from other unjust acts. Snitching does not mean to say something to try and get ahead. Now, snitching does mean to say something to try and get ahead of someone else by taking unjust advantage of his or her lack of correct judgment. So that's the first stop. Stop snitching. A. To snitch is a willfully and deliberately volunteer is to willfully and deliberately volunteer information about a person or persons with the specific intention of gaining direct or indirect personal favors and or praise from racists. So those police, quote unquote, what we call law enforcement that y'all be talking to all the time, when y'all get in trouble, or let's just say when you get in trouble and you say you're not going to, they set you up. They put you in a situation where you're gonna have to either volunteer information or cooperate with it. This happens all the time. And that mainly happens because we are committing acts, criminal acts. The only criminal act is participating in racism and white supremacy. Y'all need to get the United Independent Compensatory Code system concept. You need to get the book so you can understand what I'm talking about. You see what I'm saying? And we're not talking about, like I said, we're not talking about the snitching that y'all usually do. You know what I'm saying? And really, when you think about snitching in a sense, it's people who are engaged in the same activity and one ends up telling on the other, either to gain a foothold or to get the person out the way. That's usually what it is. Willfully. Unwillfully is when you get caught committing a crime and they got you red-handed and they know what your affiliation is, they know what you've been doing, they know who you run with, and they tell you in order for you to get out of this, you have to give us something or somebody. That's the type of snitching that y'all do. The type of snitching he's talking about is that in a sense, and the other part of it is don't volunteer any information to anybody that you know is participating in or assisting any racist or participating in racism and white supremacy. Snitching does not mean speaking to protect yourself from false accusations or from other unjust acts. That's not snitching. So if you don't want to do some shit, then maybe you need to rethink your affiliations. Maybe you need to rethink, because see, that's what ends up happening to a lot of us. You see what I'm saying? We do all of this different stuff. You know, we get in all of this trouble. Then once we get into trouble, we either gonna tell or we not. You get in trouble, you go do your time and you gonna come out. So when you come out, are you gonna go right back to the same thing because you feel like you don't got no options or opportunity? Or are you gonna try to make a new way? Those are the questions. But yeah, number one is stop snitching. Number two, stop name calling. To name call is to call a person by any name other than the name, title, etc. that person chooses to be called and or chooses to call him or herself. Name calling is a simple but major act that promotes serious conflict between one person and another. Among black people, it often leads very quickly to fighting and killing. The result of name calling is never worth the grief that such practices promote. To avoid name calling a person, it is better to practice describing what it is that a person does or says. Example, instead of calling a person a liar, repeat what it was that the person said and say that was said and say that what was said was not true, then explain why. Always explain why. Instead of calling a person a racist, describe what it is that a person says or does that is characteristic of a racist. Say that it is the type of thing that a racist says or does. However, do not call the person a racist. So here we go. It is also important to know and understand what not to do when a person calls you a name. Do not say anything, do not fight, do not kill. Okay? So, once again, we're talking about action. So if they're doing the act, then speak on the act. You know what I'm saying? If they said it was a lie, then speak on the lie. Don't call them the name, especially with us, because we call each other names all the time. We hold grudges. We hate each other over names. We hate each other over a lot of stuff that's small. But name calling is one of the main things that starts the fights. I remember growing up having to deal with that. I used to get mad at people talking about how black I was, and then it was a determination of whether I wanted to fight them or let it go. You know what I'm saying? When you let it go and people feel like you're condoning that behavior or that, you know what I'm saying, you're not going to say anything about it, you're not going to do anything about it, then they want to keep on doing it. And that turns into bullying. Then when you decide that you want to defend yourself or protect yourself from this bully, that's when the physical contact comes in. But it all starts with the name calling. You done seen it on all the movies. You done seen it on all the TV shows. The popular, what I'm saying? The bully is always calling somebody a name of some sort. The bully is always disrespecting somebody in some sort of way or manner. And then the next thing you know, a fight's going to end up breaking out once the person gets tired of being, you know, mistreated and being talked down to. So stop name calling. Always explain why you saying what you're saying. If the person don't want to accept that, then fine. Just leave it alone. You see what I'm saying? If they don't want to accept that, that's cool. Leave it alone. Eventually, they might accept it or they might not. But that's not up to you to be calling them names and being disrespectful. Now, these are things that non-white people need to do. Because once we stop doing these things, then we're going to start treating each other different. But this is just a brief explanation. We might even get into doing shows on each of these, you know what I'm saying, and bring up some examples, some clips of different stuff, whatever. But we're going to talk about this. Number 3, stop cursing. To curse people is to use profanity towards them in a manner that is likely to be thought of as insulting or demeaning. This often results in the promotion of hostility. The hostility promoted oftentimes serves no constructive purpose. We're having a constructive conversation. This is the basis of counter racism. We have to have constructive conversations between non white people so we can understand the system that we're in and what's happening to us. We're all victims, all non white people are victims of racism, white supremacy. So we shouldn't be bickering back and forth with each other, but that's what the system wants us to do. They want us to bicker back and forth with each other, kill each other while they kill us as well. Because the whole point is white genetic survival. You see what I'm saying? We're not even on hating white people right now, you know, but we get the hate because we are the dominant people on the planet, as explained by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. So this isn't what a lot of people think. This is exactly what it is. It's a mode of survival for white people who classify themselves as white. So stop cursing. Because we curse at each other, it's over with. You know what I'm saying? Once the you know what I'm saying, once that B word fly out your mouth, Especially when a male's calling another male a bitch or a hoe or a hoe ass N word, hoe ass Negro, whatever you want to call it. This is what we do on a regular basis to each other. So stop cursing. That and that'll probably stop a lot of the stuff that's going on in the first place. You know, I mean, and that's just coming from me because I done experienced it too. Number four, stop gossiping. Now, after I say everything I say, every time I say a stop, it's going to be an explanation after, reason or explanation. To gossip about a person is to say something about a person to someone other than that person that you would not be willing to say directly to that person at the same time and place with those other people listening. Gossip promotes injustice. Oftentimes it leads to hostility, which in turn often leads to snitching, name calling, cursing, fighting, and or killing. Gossip promotes confusion and unnecessary suspicion. It serves no constructive purpose. So when y'all go around talking about people and what they do and how they do and their situations and y'all go around, you know what I'm saying, continuously talking about all of this stuff and, you know, speaking on somebody else, just like you said, to gossip about a person is to say something about that person to someone other than that person that you will not be willing to say directly to that person. So you're talking about somebody and what they're doing, and you're gossiping to somebody else about that, but you're not talking to them about it. So when you have a problem with your homeboy and you see he doing something that you don't think is cool, you go to your homeboy and you talk to him about that. If y'all homies, y'all can sit down and rap about it. You got to find a way to do it though, because it might be a sensitive issue. It might be something that might be hitting close to home. It might be something he don't even want to talk about, you know. But most of the time when we do the things that we do, sometimes it's subconscious or unconsciously being done because it becomes a habit. And it's hard to break habits. You got to restrain yourself. You know, you got to fight them urges. You know, so when it's time to speak about something, especially from somebody that you care about, or even if it's just somebody that you know and you got a concern with them, whether it's a friend, whether it's an acquaintance, no matter what it is, instead of gossiping about that person to somebody else, go talk to that person about what's going on. You know, find a constructive way to have that conversation with that person because that's at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. You know, constructive conversation that allows us to understand the system that we're in so we can survive in the system so we can move through it until we all get on code and destroy the system or start destroying the system individually. So that's what gossip does. And we don't want to gossip. And number five, and then we're going to take a break for some sponsors. You know, number five, stop being discourteous. To be discourteous is to say or do something that shows a lack of consideration for what a person is doing or saying or trying to do or say to promote knowledge or understanding of his or her thought, speech, or actions. To be discourteous means not to allow a person to reveal and or to explain his or her intentions. It means for a person to speak and or act as he or she chooses, with little or no regard as to how others will be affected. Discourtesy often breeds hostility and or confusion. Discourteous speech and or action often promotes name calling, cursing, fighting, and killing. Note: if someone is discourteous to you, do not help promote it by speaking and or acting with discourtesy towards him or her. Try to avoid contact with such persons. Say only to them that which is absolutely necessary. Stop being discourteous. So we need to have we need to have more consideration for each other's feelings and the things that's going on with us. You know, To be discourteous is to say or do something that shows a lack of consideration for what a person is doing or saying, or trying to do or say, to promote knowledge or understanding of his or her thoughts, speech, or actions. So if somebody's trying to explain something to you, if they're trying to reveal their intentions, give them an opportunity to try and find a way to do it. Don't just be discourteous and think that and then we need to stop being discourteous to each other. We need to give each other some courtesy before we do certain things. Sometimes these type of things happen between us because we're victims of racism and white supremacy. We don't really know better, you know. And most of the time, it's outside influences that cause these things or begin to cause these things to happen. So stop being discourteous. If someone is discourteous to you, do not help to promote it by speaking and or acting discourteously towards him or her. So don't give what you receive. See, this is you see these are personal stops. You see what I'm saying? And if you can do this on a personal level, then the next thing is to try and find a way to explain the action so the action can be duplicated by others. Huh. Stop being discourteous. So that's the first four. Stop snitching, stop name calling, stop cursing. Well, that's the first five. Stop gossiping, and number five, stop being discourteous. So we went through the first five, and we're gonna go through the second five here after this break. All right. Word from our sponsors. This is your brother, Age of 2020, and you are tuned in to Clear Vision for 2020. Peace, family. Peace, family. And we are back after that. After those sponsors gave their messages and set everything up. So that sponsor was actually me supporting the final call in this case, which is, to me, the only 100% black owned, black operated, and independent news source on the planet. Anything dealing with non white people that you want to know about and dealing with the system of racism, white supremacy that you want to know about is definitely in that paper. It's definitely in that paper, and there is no sugarcoating anything in that newspaper, period. Okay? So, our topic today is the 10 stops, the 10 basic stops that victims of racism should practice in speech and or action. So I left off at number 5, which was stop being discourteous. Okay? So now we're going to number 6. Now every time I read one, I'm gonna read the explanation that's attached to it. And if you want to get this, go to go to www.enddarkenment.com. That is ENDARKENMENT.com. Endarkment.com. Okay? In Google, just type in the 10 basic stops for victims of racism, white supremacy. And then it'll pull everything up that you need to pull up, including Neely Fuller Jr.'s book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Now, stop number 6. Stop stealing. Now, I have been a thief. I'm not even going to lie. I've stolen before. I've stolen a lot of things before, especially when I was younger. But that was because, since being a victim of white supremacy, I was thinking that since I was stealing, I was getting what I wanted that didn't nobody else want to give me. But I wasn't getting it in a proper manner. Okay? So stop stealing. Reason. To steal from any person for any reason is to promote injustice. To steal, even to survive, is to promote injustice, like I just said. To steal, even from one who has stolen from you, is to support injustice. To steal, even from an enemy, is to promote injustice. To steal, even from a racist, is to promote injustice. Stealing causes a person to put a greater value on the things stolen than the value of justice. Also, once a person starts stealing, he or she develops the tendency to continue to do so. In a world socio-material system, in a world socio-material system dominated by white supremacist racists, all people are encouraged to steal or to condone stealing by some people under some conditions. Those white people who practice white supremacy have stolen more things from people and have stolen more people from themselves than any other category of people in the known universe. Under white supremacy, stealing is particularly condoned if it is done through the very skillful use of deceit. Let me read that again. Under white supremacy, stealing is particularly condoned if it is done through the very skillful use of deceit. If a person can steal from another by gaining his or her confidence and or by skillful trickery, it is often considered to be not stealing, but the so-called game of so-called living. When stealing helps to maintain, expand, and or refine the practice of white supremacy, it is not generally considered to be stealing. It is oftentimes called progress. Let me repeat that one more time. When stealing helps to maintain, expand, and or refine the practice of white supremacy, it is not generally considered to be stealing. It is oftentimes called progress. Hmm. Wow. This is a pretty lengthy explanation on the stop stealing. So I'm gonna go through a couple of different parts. The system of white supremacy functions in such a manner that non-white people are not only expected to steal but are also encouraged to steal. They are trained, bribed, and or enticed from the time that they are small infants. Mm. They are taught to want many things that will deliberately make be made difficult for them to obtain. After being encouraged to want certain things, they are then denied the means to acquire them without robbing, stealing, and or killing in order to get them. Wow. Now this is lengthy. My suggestion is this is what I like to call like almost like a cue card. You know what I'm saying? It gets right to the point of the basics of the 10 stops, you know, but it lists them directly from the book. Okay. This particular list is in area number 6, which is the area of politics. People interacting with people. That's what politics is. Okay. Ooh, we're gonna have to come back to the stop stealing. We definitely gonna have to come back to this. Now, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead on and finish reading it. Okay. They are in many instances very deceptively encouraged to want many things that are of no constructive value. Things that are of no constructive value. Things they do not need and that no person can constructively in the manner that is generally and that no person can use constructively in a manner that is greatly considered acceptable. Racists oftentimes ridicule their subjects because they do not have or do not want to have many things that racists say that a subject should strive to get. That is the problem in our community right there. Because we picked that right up. We picked that right up. Oh, you ain't got the new Jordans? Yeah, you poor, bro. You know what I'm saying? You need to step your game up. There go that word game again. You need to step your game up, bro. Get you some Jordans. Oh, you ain't got the latest uh Gucci shirt? Or you ain't got the latest, you know, NBA jersey, NFL jersey, the latest house, you know what I'm saying? The newest household item. Man, you need to get man, you poor, bro. Or whoever. That's how they that's man, look. That says a lot right there. The racists say that their subjects, non-white people, are backward if they do not want and strive to get all of the things that racists then proceed to encourage their subjects to develop a desire for those things. Hmm. Tell me if this is hitting anybody on the head. I want y'all to make sure y'all go to my website, my page, and comment on this. Anchor.fm/Agent 2020. Okay? Mm. Once the subjects develop the desire, the racists act deliberately to directly or indirectly discourage the subjects from getting the things desired by any means other than stealing, robbing, and or killing. So we're gonna keep you out of the employment. We're gonna put all of this stuff in your face and tell you this is what you should have if you want to be a successful person, or if you want to feel like you're normal, or if you want to participate in our system, you should be having these things. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep away from you the means to get those things. So I'm gonna discriminate with the employment. I'm gonna make sure that you don't have the opportunity to do anything constructive to build up to get that thing that you want to get. I'm gonna make sure I keep every aspect of you making any type of money or getting any type of progress all the way away from you. So your only result is to rob somebody that has something or steal from somebody that has something to obtain what you want. Now, I was guilty of that, and I'll be the first one to admit it. I had a down and out patch in my life probably about 2, 3 years ago, and my homeboy, and I and I thank God for him, and I'm apologizing on this podcast as well for doing what I did. So to my brother, Black Magic, aka Dr. Ali, I'm apologizing to you, my brother, for taking that money from you. And I still got some more things I'm gonna try to do to rectify that. So I'll be the first one to admit that I did that because I was in the system of racism, white supremacy, being a victim, and was doing everything I could possibly do to get my life together with minimal support or minimal funds. So once again, we come right back to what they say. Once the subjects develop the desire, they act deliberately to directly or indirectly discourage the subjects from getting what they desire by any means other than robbing, stealing, and or killing. The racists then act to punish their subjects because of the manner that they, the subjects, use to acquire the things that they were trained to desire. So it's like, yeah, let me show you how to do this. I know it's illegal, but if we catch you, we gonna lock you up. Let me make sure I take everything away from you. Man, this stealing, this is we probably gonna have to talk about this in depth on one of these episodes. It's gonna be an in-depth conversation. But I'm gonna finish reading and then we're gonna move on to the next one. Under white supremacy, racist, non-white people. Under white supremacy, racist system, non-white people are directly or indirectly encouraged to steal those things that are of use or let me start over. Under white supremacy, racism, non-white people are directly or indirectly encouraged to steal those things that are of use or or a relatively short period. All things considered, it is better that no person steal from or rob anyone at any time for any reason. This is one of the best ways to start to produce justice and show how nothing is important without it. That's the whole, without my interjection and commentary, that's the whole thing. That's the whole definition of stop stealing or explanation behind stop stealing. Stop robbing. Okay? To rob a person is to use direct bodily harm and or use the threat of direct bodily harm. To take from a person any to take from a person any one or more things that he or she possesses, and then to use the things taken to please the mind and or take advantage or make comfortable the body of the person doing the taking. To steal from a person is to take something from that person without that person knowing one or more of the following at the exact same time of the taking. When what was taken, when it was taken, where it was taken, why it was taken, and who took it. A person who robs has the same basic intentions as a person who steals. Neither robbing nor stealing help to promote justice. A person should not rob for the same reason that he or she should not steal. I've never robbed anybody before, but I know some people who have, and I know when you do something like that, either you're going to have to look over your shoulder because they might retaliate, or you're not going to look over your shoulder and you're just going to let it go and chalk it up. Like they say, chalk it up to the time. Hmm. So stop robbing. So see, when we rob each other, guess what we do in the neighborhood? Guess what we do in our community? When we rob each other, we cause this cycle of violence. I'm gonna rob you, then you gonna rob me back, or somebody else gonna rob me, and then I'm gonna rob them, and this is just a cycle. I mean, I remember here where I live for a summer, they picked one person, and that brother right now is doing time in the federal, not in the penitentiary for murder. And I'm gonna say his code name because the people where I'm from gonna know who I'm talking about. My brother way too funky had a nice car laid out, rims and everything. But because the brother wasn't a gangster, because he wasn't out here banging, because he wasn't out here set tripping, he wasn't carrying no pistols, he wasn't robbing his own, he wasn't shooting up his own, he wasn't beating up his own. They made this brother an example by doing something that I've never seen before. They robbed him. They took the rims off of his truck, no, off of his car, okay? And they was passing them around to each other. One dude to have him on his car for a day or two or a week or something, and he'll be looking for his rims, and this dude got him, and then that dude will give him to somebody else, and then wait till it get him back, and then they'll rob him again, but it'll be a different person. They did this to this brother probably about 5 or 6 times during the whole summer. He didn't get to ride on those rims and enjoy that car that whole summer like he should have. That following summer, somebody did something to his baby mama, once again, wanting to rob. He found out, went and killed him. You see what I'm saying? Now, that brother, right now, being the victim of racism, white supremacy, is in prison right now for murder. Now, should he kill himself? As the book states, under the section of law, which is people activity number 5, should he kill himself or was it justified? You know what I'm saying? The dudes, they put guns to the heads of his baby's mother and his children. Was he justified in killing that dude when he seen him? I'll let y'all think about that. And question for
Peace, family. This is your brother 2020 from Clear Vision with 2020. And I got a question for you. Have you ever asked yourself, where can I get some truthful, unbiased news that gives me the whole story and doesn't just give me half of it or what somebody wants me to hear? Well, we have a solution for you today. Listen to what I'm saying. We have a solution for you today. And it is called the Final Call newspaper. This is the only independent, black-owned and operated newspaper in the world. And it's published right here out of America. Right here in America. You get this newspaper once a week. And it's going to have articles about everything that you could think of that has to do with Black America and the world. So, go to www.finalcalldigital.com. Get your digital edition. It'll go right to your tablet, right to your desktop, right to your mobile phone. All right? This is your brother 2020, and we're out. Peace.
peace, family, peace, family, and we are back with Clear Vision with 2020. And this episode is called The 10 Stops. Okay? The 10 Stops that victims of racism should practice in speech and or action. Now we ended on number 7, stop robbing. And I told y'all why. I just gave one example from where I'm at. You see what I'm saying? Where that robbing stuff can get you in trouble. Okay? Now, I knew some cats that used to like robbing people on a regular basis. You see what I'm saying? Now, I don't know what type of effect that had on them, but it wasn't too good. So, if I didn't get the chance to read Stop Robbing and the explanation behind it, we're going to do that again. You know what I'm saying? So, we're going to go over that one real quick and then we're going to move on to the next one. So, number 7 is Stop Robbing. Explanation. Reason. To rob a person is to use direct bodily harm and or to use the threat of direct bodily harm, to take from a person any one or more things that he or she possesses, and then to use the things taken to please the mind and or to make comfortable the body of the person doing the taking. To steal from a person is to take something from that person without that person knowing one or more of the following at the exact same time of the take: what was taken, when it was taken, where it was taken, why it was taken, and who took it. A person who robs has the same basic intentions as a person who steals. Neither robbing nor stealing helps to promote justice. A person should not rob for the same reason that he or she should not steal. So we got the gist of rob, you know. So that means that we shouldn't be going and trying to rob no liquor stores. We shouldn't be trying to rob no gas stations. We shouldn't be trying to rob no banks. We shouldn't be trying to rob no credit unions. My dude robbed the credit union over 10 years ago, still paying for that today. You see what I'm saying? But my guy didn't just do it just to be doing it. You know what I'm saying? He had other issues that prompted him to do that. He didn't just wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I want to just go rob a credit union. I don't got nothing to do with the money. I just want to go rob the credit union. So nah, that ain't it. We already know that being a victim of racism, white supremacy is enough. Being confused out here in this world is enough for any victim to go and do something that's out of their character. We already know that. Okay. So let's move on to number 8. Stop fighting. Now we've been experiencing this since we've been children. And I'm talking about babies. Okay. When 2 and 3 year olds can get into fights, then something is wrong. Okay. So stop fighting. People should not fight as long as they can talk to each other, and they should talk to each other in such manner as to minimize conflict and or to better promote justice. When people cannot talk to each other without trying to maim or do each other bodily harm, when people cannot talk to each other without trying to maim or do other bodily harm to each other, they should then do everything that they can to minimize or eliminate contact with each other. When people have no contact with each other directly or indirectly, they cannot have conflict with each other. There is no justifiable violence by persons against each other. There is only justifiable counter-violence. It is correct for all persons to do all that they can to avoid being involved in any form of violence. It is also correct for all persons to try and keep circumstances from becoming so imbalanced that counter-violence is required in order to promote justice. People who exist in subjugation to white supremacy racism should only use counter-violence, and they should only use counter-violence for the following purposes. 1. To protect themselves from others, to protect themselves or others from acts of deliberate, immediate, direct, and functionally unavoidable violence by any person or persons. In protecting themselves or others, only a minimum of necessary counter-violence should be used. To enact maximum emergency compensatory justice. See Note, see detailed description of maximum emergency compensatory justice in the portion of this work entitled Area 9 War. Now we about to look that up. because see, we're gonna make sure we have everything in context. We're gonna make sure we have everything in the proper context. Because they're saying that the only time you should use violence is maximum emergency compensatory justice. So we about to look that up. Now that's in um, section 9, or what you would consider the last people activity, because that's the extreme right there. So when we at war, this is the only time where you're really justified to use violence. So let's look it up. We are going to look at maximum compensatory action. Hold on, family. Hold on. I'm about to pull it up real quick. Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to start right here. What is a maximum emergency condition? In racial matters, a condition of maximum emergency exists whenever white supremacy is established, maintained, expanded, and/or refined in any place in the known universe by the direct or indirect use of violence or the threat of violence previously used. Under white supremacy, a condition of maximum emergency means that an individual victim of white supremacy, for reasons known to him or her, no longer has the will to submit to and/or cooperate with any part of racist white supremacist domination at any time for any reason to any degree. Maximum emergency compensatory action. I'm trying to find the maximum compensatory justice too. Maximum emergency compensatory action is a swift, efficient, unannounced execution, elimination of one or more racist white supremacists by an individual victim of racism, non-white person acting openly and alone at a time and place of his or her own choosing, and after commencing such action immediately continues without respite or surrender until he or she is forced to eliminate himself or herself rather than be eliminated or captured by others. Maximum emergency compensatory action is the promotion of the production of justice through counterviolence under racial conditions of maximum emergency. So, what he's saying is the only reason why you should be killing anybody is if maximum emergency compensatory action has to be used. It has to be used. It is the willful and deliberate elimination of one or more racist white supremacists through death, and the willful and deliberate elimination of self through death by a victim of racism, acting alone according to a detailed plan and acting only after he or she has judged that he or she can no longer endure the effects of racism. Okay? So, that's the only time you should be using violence. So, basically, black people, brown people, or we'll just say original people, because everybody under everybody falls under the original category, you know what I'm saying, if they are of one of the five areas of people of color. So now that we know that, the only time justice should be used I'm sorry. The only time violence should be used, fighting. The only time you should be fighting, black man and woman, is when you fighting to protect yourself, not from non-white people, even though we have to do that since we are to a degree brainwashed and to the point to where we like almost hate each other anyway. So sometimes the fighting has to occur until you have some reason not to. And the only reason you have not to fight your fellow black man or woman is the fact that you are victims of racism, white supremacy, and we are under a system that wants us to do that to each other. So when it's time to fight, the only time you should be fighting is when you see your brother or your sister being accosted or attacked by somebody that's white. Other than that, if you have a conflict with your brother or sister, you need to sit down and have a talk. Y'all need to squash that some way besides fight. And if you can't do it, just avoid each other. No matter what the situation is, avoid each other. Don't get around your friends and get to talking about somebody that you know you don't like that you see at the store or at somewhere else. Don't go and start trying to mess with them. Don't be talking about them. Don't be making fun of them and doing all of that stuff that we usually do to people and around people that we don't like. If you got a problem with the dude, just walk on by him. You know what I'm saying? But what do we do when we see somebody we don't like? We automatically start frowning our face up, mugging them and staring them down. You know what I'm saying? Or we get to plotting and planning what we gonna do when we get outside or whatever. So no, the only time you should be fighting is if you fighting together, not each other. Like I said, man, the 10 basic stops. This is as real as it gets to me for real because I done seen it. I done seen how we fight each other with no remorse. I mean, I see how we go in on each other with no remorse at all whatsoever. But you give every bit of mercy to the enemy. I don't see none of y'all riding through no neighborhood of white people looking for any white boys that ever fuck with y'all. Don't say they don't because they do. But for the most part, they know not to mess with y'all. You see what I'm saying? But you or we ride around the hood every day looking for somebody to fuck with. Excuse my language. Looking for somebody to mess with, but they always look like us. Looking for somebody to rob, but they always look like us. Looking for somebody to fight, but they always look like us. Looking for somebody to steal from, and they always look like us. Looking for somebody to be discourteous to. Looking for somebody to gossip about. This is all the stuff we do. Cursing, as well as name calling and snitching on each other. So it's time for all of that to stop. You know what I'm saying? It's just time for it. So, number 9, stop killing. These are the only exceptions that you should kill. When forced to do so in direct defense of self, others, and or major property, or except when forced to do so through the enactment of maximum emergency compensatory justice. So you shouldn't be killing each other. Bottom line, period. Even in reason why you should stop killing, even in direct and immediate defense of self or of others, and or in the direct protection of major property, it is best to avoid killing or maiming. Killing any aggressor should only be done when there is apparently no other known way to put an immediate stop to his or her aggression, and or when every reasonable effort has been made to escape the immediate fury of the aggression. It is correct for victims of racism, non-white person, to willfully and deliberately kill and or execute no persons, person, persons except racist white supremacists, and when done, that victim of racism should then kill him or herself. Note: see detailed description of maximum emergency compensatory justice in the portion of this work entitled Area 9 War. I just read that. So if you don't have no other way to get away from this shit, if you ain't got no escape, there's no other way for you to get away from the situation, then you kill. So see, running away ain't being scared. Running away sometimes is being smart. You see what I'm saying? Getting away from a situation can be just as detrimental as trying to stay in it and confront it. We're not saying be scared of the racists. We're not saying be scared of white supremacy. We're saying if you can avoid it, get away from it. Get out of it and get home. If you can't avoid it and you have to fight or you have to kill, then you fight or you kill for your life. And then after you do that, in order to keep them from capturing you, you either want to be a prisoner of war or you're going to go ahead on and either take yourself out or have them take you out. So that means if you got to deliberately do what you got to do. So see, all of these things are directly to victims of racism. These are the areas that you should be. These are the things you should be thinking about. Everybody need to get the Independent United Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller Jr. so you can fully understand why he's saying what he's saying. So stop killing. When we stop killing each other, that's when people gonna start paying attention. Imagine one day on the planet, one day, one 24-hour period where no black person gets killed. One day where we don't get shot, shot at, stabbed, beat up, anything that has to do with violence. One day, the only day that I know that there was no violence at all in the black community all over the country and probably the world is October 16th, 1995. If you don't know what that date is, you need to go look it up. You need to go look it up. October 16th, 1995 on a Monday. Go look it up. And number 10, stop squabbling among yourselves and asking racists to settle your problems. Reason. One of the major non-just acts that racist white supremacists commit is to establish situations that cause and or encourage non-white people to squabble among themselves. Racists do not approve of any fights or arguments between non-white people that non-white people settle amongst themselves without the so-called help of the racists. Racists do not knowingly allow any non-white person or persons to do anything that does not directly or indirectly help to promote racism and white supremacy. Racists approve of and encourage non-white people to fight each other, kill each other, squabble with each other, name call each other, and or do anything that best helps non-white people to maintain confused and non-constructive. Racists, however, are not in favor of the extermination of all non-white people. They are in favor of many non-white people being killed, but not all of them. They have no desire for non-white people to become extinct. If non-white people became extinct, there could be no way for white people to practice racism. At least they could not practice it in the form of white supremacy. Racists want white supremacy. Racists want non-white people to continue to exist. It is not possible to practice white supremacy if non-white people do not exist. The racists want non-white people to continue to be their subjects and victims. While using non-white people as victims, the racists particularly want the non-white people to squabble among themselves, and they want the non-white people to beg them, the racists, to settle the squabbles. This is one of the major ways that the racists have of maintaining their power. They also do this to prove their power, feed their egos, and amuse themselves. Now, it's only one other group that says that, and that's the Nation of Islam. And one of the things that is being said is that basically it's like this: two black people are arguing, and nobody's around, but these other individuals. Now, these other individuals take it upon themselves to settle the problem. Once they settle the problem, then what they do is they have control over the individuals who had the problem in the first place. So, in other words, we're going to cause you to fight and argue amongst each other, possibly start killing each other. And then, when it's time for the differences to be settled, we're going to be the ones you call to settle the differences for you. And then, once that happens, then we rule over you and the person you was fighting with. Just that simple, you see. And if you ain't thinking about that, then you don't understand. So, one of Yaqub's tricks that he taught his people was to go amongst the original people and cause them to fight and kill each other. Then, when it's time to settle the dispute, you come in and offer to settle the dispute, and then you can rule over both of them. Tell me that hasn't been going on. You can't, because it has. So, family, those are the 10 stops that victims of racism should promote and or do in action and speech. Okay? Like I said, in darkenment.com or just type into Google the 10 basic stops for victims of racism and it'll pop right up for you. Okay? Go get the book. I encourage you to get the book. I encourage you to get the ISIS papers by Dr. Francis Cress Wilson. Those books, along with any history books that you have from trusted sources, black sources, my suggestion to you would be to get that and read it. Learn about your history, learn about who you are, learn about the things that's happened to us so we can try and find a way to counter these things. All right? So this is your brother 2020. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate it. Could have been anywhere else, but you're here. Like, comment, share. Go to Anchor FM / Agent 2020 to check out some more of the podcasts that's on the Anchor site. I appreciate you, family, for your time. Thank you. You have a wonderful day. God bless.